The first time I saw the headline, my hands went cold. Local teacher under fire for exam fraud. My coffee cup slipped from my fingers and shattered against the kitchen tile, its warmth leaking away just like the color from my face. I stared at the screen at the photo below the headline. Her photo. Serena's. She was smiling, an old photo, probably from a school yearbook, but the article beneath it sliced through the curated image she had built over the years. I had warned her weeks before. I told her I had the evidence, that I had watched her spin lies for too long, that if she didn't stop, I'd stop her myself. But she didn't believe me. She thought I was still the same naive woman she humiliated at my own birthday party, that I would never fight back, that I wouldn't know how. She was wrong. I had spent months collecting everything I needed. Emails, hidden documents, her own voice, recorded without her knowing. All the facts, the truth, ready to be shared. Serena had used my birthday to spread a lie that almost destroyed my career. But the story she told wasn't just false, it was reckless. And while everyone believed her then, now the truth was finally louder than her voice. And this time, it was my turn to watch her crumble. My name is Miranda, and I was 29 when Serena destroyed my birthday with a lie that nearly cost me everything. We had been close best friends, but she always found ways to make herself the center of attention. That night, surrounded by family and colleagues, she whispered something that turned everyone against me. I didn't understand why, not at first. But then I saw the smirk on her face and realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was sabotage. The worst part? People believed her. They questioned my ethics, my confidence, and my future. And Serena? She just kept smiling. But what she didn't know was that I would not sit quietly in the wreckage she created. I started gathering the truth, patiently, carefully. Because if she wanted a spectacle, I would give her one. Only this time, the spotlight would show who she really was. Serena and I met during our freshman year at university. She was magnetic in a loud, unapologetic way. I, on the other hand, was quieter, more observant. Still, we clicked. We studied business together, partnered on projects, and shared long conversations over coffee and cheap wine. By graduation, we had formed something like a sisterhood, or so I thought. We moved into the same city, started working at different firms, but stayed close. At 25, we even traveled to Europe together. Serena had this habit of turning small interactions into dramatic tales, exaggerating everything to get a reaction. Sometimes it made me laugh. Sometimes I cringed. But she was my best friend, and I chalked it up to personality. The cracks started showing when I began to succeed professionally. I got a promotion at work that put me in charge of a regional campaign. It was a major step up, and I was proud of it. Serena was supportive, but there was something clipped in her congratulations, something performative. She smiled, she hugged me, but her eyes didn't. Soon after, she started questioning my decisions. "You really think they picked you for your ideas?" she asked one evening, her wine glass swirling lazily. "Or was it because you're good at smiling in meetings?" It stung, but I laughed it off. I always laughed it off. Our friendship became a careful dance. She would jab, I would retreat. She'd apologize in her breezy way, then do it again a week later. I began to realize that Serena didn't mind my success so long as it never outshone hers. Still, I kept her close. We had history. She knew my family. She'd held my hand through my first breakup and watched cheesy holiday movies with me every December. I thought loyalty mattered more than ego. At work, I was thriving. I had earned respect, landed high-profile clients, and was being considered for a director-level position by the time I turned 29. My colleagues respected me, and I felt genuinely proud of the reputation I had built. I decided to celebrate my birthday with something special. I booked a rooftop venue and invited close friends, colleagues, and family. It wasn't about flaunting anything, it was a thank you to the people who supported me. And yes, Serena was at the top of the guest list. Despite the small wounds, she was still my friend. Or so I believed. Leading up to the party, she offered to help. She sent me dresses to consider, helped me pick out the wine, even suggested the caterer. "Let's make it a night to remember," she said, and I believed her. But on the night of the party, I sensed something was off. Serena arrived late, in a glittering red dress that turned every head. She hugged me, overly cheerful, then disappeared into the crowd. I noticed her talking to people in hushed tones. When I approached, conversations abruptly ended or shifted. I brushed it off. Maybe I was nervous. Maybe I was imagining things. Then came the speech. Just before the cake, one of my colleagues, Liam, stood up and tapped his glass. "A quick toast," he said, smiling. "To Miranda, our star. May her hard work and honesty always guide her." There was a pause. Polite laughter. But the word honesty landed wrong. It was too sharp, too pointed. After the toast, whispers buzzed louder. Someone avoided my gaze. Another person nodded sympathetically. And then, someone finally asked, "Did you really take credit for that client proposal?" My heart froze. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Apparently, Serena had told several guests that I had plagiarized a colleague's work to secure a contract, that my rise wasn't as earned as it looked. It was a lie. A complete fabrication. But in a room full of professional peers and my own family, doubt spread like smoke. I tried to defend myself, but the damage was done. Even those who trusted me looked uncomfortable. And Serena? She stood in the corner, sipping champagne with a serene expression on her face. That was the night I learned the difference between a friend and a rival. But what Serena didn't know was that while she was busy whispering lies, I was quietly recording every truth she had tried to hide over the years. Her reputation wasn't as flawless as she made it seem. She had her own secrets, ones I had kept to protect her. Until now. Because if she wanted to play with fire, I was ready to show her what it felt like to burn. 2 days after the party, I returned to work and found the energy in the office strangely stiff. People said hello, but there was a new distance in their tone, a hesitation in their glances. It wasn't paranoia. I knew the signs of quiet judgment. And I had Serena to thank for it. The rumor she started, about me stealing credit for a proposal, had taken root. Even though it was false, the story was compelling enough to spread. That's the nature of whispers. Truth doesn't matter nearly as much as the thrill of a fall from grace. I tried to clarify things to my boss, Richard, but he only nodded slowly and said, "We're just going to monitor things for now." That was his way of saying, "I'm watching, but I don't trust you like I used to." The worst part? He had once been one of my greatest champions. That night, I sat at home with my laptop, rereading the party text Serena had sent me before it all fell apart. She had played the perfect best friend, even offering to help write my thank you speech. Her betrayal felt so elaborate, so purposeful. I felt humiliated, angry, alone. But as I sat there, a strange calm washed over me. Because I remembered something Serena had told me almost a year earlier, drunk, careless, and too proud of herself. She had confided in me that she had used confidential information from her job to help land a personal side client, an influencer she wanted to manage for extra money. "Just a few strategic leaks," she said, laughing. "No one gets hurt." She never named names, but she admitted to sending internal data to a personal email account. Back then, I had begged her to stop. She brushed me off. "You worry too much," she said. "If anything goes wrong, I'll just say it was a misunderstanding." Now, sitting in the quiet of my apartment, I realized that she had handed me the matchbox, and now she had doused the floor in gasoline. I still had the chat screenshots. I had archived every conversation, every voice note, every ill-advised confession from years of friendship. I never thought I would need them. I certainly never thought I would use them. But Serena had dragged my name through the mud without blinking. She had watched my birthday crumble and said nothing. She had made sure the people I respected most now questioned my integrity. And for what? Jealousy? Spite? She had taken something precious from me, my reputation. So I made a quiet decision. I would return the favor, but not with lies. I wouldn't stoop to her level. I would ruin her with the truth. The first thing I did was confirm the client she had secretly worked with. I remembered the name vaguely, some rising lifestyle guru with over 1 million followers. I found her in less than 5 minutes. Her website had a contact email for business inquiries. I wrote a short, professional message and asked if we could schedule a brief conversation about potential conflicts involving her current representation. The influencer responded within a day. I explained that I had concerns about how Serena had obtained internal information from her employer to build a working relationship. The influencer was alarmed. She had no idea Serena wasn't authorized to share certain data. She asked me for proof, and I provided just enough to startle her without putting myself in legal danger. She promised to look into it. I didn't push. I didn't need to. That was just the beginning. Next, I composed an anonymous tip to Serena's compliance department. I cited potential breaches of data privacy, attaching redacted screenshots with key quotes. I knew the system. Her firm was bound by strict policies, and any suspicion of misconduct triggered an automatic audit. I sent it off. Quietly. Calmly. Then I waited. It took 2 weeks. In that time, Serena didn't reach out once. No apology. No explanation. I saw her post smiling selfies and career updates online, still basking in the illusion of control. Still pretending she hadn't tried to dismantle my life in one evening. Then came the fallout. One of our mutual friends texted me a simple message. Did you hear? Serena had been suspended pending investigation. Her employer cited internal ethics violations. The influencer dropped her. Her name had disappeared from their site. I didn't gloat. I didn't tell anyone. But that evening, I poured myself a quiet glass of wine and sat by the window. Not because I wanted revenge for revenge's sake, but because the truth had finally spoken louder than the lie. And that was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed Serena's suspension, the office settled into a strange hush. People were still cautious around me, as if unsure whether to treat me like a survivor or a ticking time bomb. But slowly, things began to shift. I noticed colleagues stopping by my desk with warm smiles again. Invitations to coffee reappeared. One even said, "Sorry about what happened. Some people just can't stand seeing others shine." I didn't ask if they meant Serena. I didn't have to. What I didn't expect, though, was that Serena would try to worm her way back. She texted me out of the blue, "Hey, can we talk? I think there's been some misunderstanding." I stared at the message for a full 5 minutes. A misunderstanding? After all she had done, the lie at my party, the sabotage at work, the whisper campaign, she wanted to clear the air with a casual apology? I didn't respond. I deleted the message and blocked her number. But I knew her too well. She wouldn't take silence as an answer. She showed up at my building 2 days later. I saw her through the glass front doors, pacing, agitated, like a fox sniffing for an opening. My concierge rang up. "She says she's a friend," he told me. "She's not," I replied calmly. "Don't let her in." Still, I couldn't relax. The storm wasn't over. The next escalation came when Serena took her story public. She posted a long, winding reflection on social media, full of vague accusations about betrayal and jealousy. She didn't name me, but anyone who knew us could read between the lines. She cast herself as the misunderstood one, the victim. She talked about being targeted by someone close who twisted the truth. The comments poured in, mostly from people who only knew her online. "You got this, queen. Jealousy is a disease. You're glowing." I wanted to scream. I wanted to reach through the screen and shake every single person who believed her. Instead, I did something else. I dug deeper. If she was going to keep twisting the truth, then I would simply shine a brighter light. I contacted someone from her former firm, someone I had once trained when they were an intern. They weren't in Serena's department, but they had heard the gossip, and more importantly, they knew the compliance officer handling the internal investigation. Let's just say, the person said cautiously, she didn't just break rules. She built a whole side hustle off of confidential data. And they have the emails. I asked if she had already been let go. Not officially, the contact said. But it's coming. And when it does, no one in the industry will touch her. I nodded slowly. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about setting things right. Then came the final push. Serena had always loved throwing charity events. She didn't do it for the cause, she did it for the photos. There was one annual gala in particular that she co-hosted, a glittering affair where everyone wore floor-length gowns and pretended to care about community outreach. This year, she announced she would still be hosting independently. It was her last-ditch effort to stay relevant. But this time, I had the receipts. The charity in question had no idea she was planning to use their name. When I reached out to them anonymously, they were alarmed. I sent screenshots of her announcements and past misconduct. Within days, they issued a public statement. We are not affiliated with the event being promoted by Serena Hamilton. We take issues of trust and representation seriously. It went viral in our little city. The backlash came swiftly. Her name trended not with praise, but with scrutiny. Former clients came forward. Even the influencer who had once trusted her posted a video about ethical standards, never naming Serena, but making it obvious. That was the moment everything cracked. She vanished from the public eye, deleted her profiles, tried to erase herself from a world that had already begun to forget her. And me? I didn't say a word. Because the truth had finally done what my silence could not. It had ended her game. I had always believed that revenge, when rooted in truth, does not need to shout. It simply reveals. And now that the facade Serena built had crumbled on its own, I could finally step into the sunlight, no shame, no fear, no lies. Still, I wasn't done. There was one final step, something quiet but permanent. Weeks after the charity scandal, Serena attempted a soft comeback. She rebranded under a new name, claiming to launch a marketing consultancy built on integrity. She posted polished content, motivational quotes, and vague apologies without ever taking real responsibility. It was laughable, but I knew her. If I didn't make the truth permanent, she'd spin another illusion, and some poor soul would fall for it again. So I contacted the professional standards board in our field. I compiled the emails, the recordings, the screenshots, the charity statement, and the internal investigation summary. Everything I had, I laid it out in a formal ethics complaint. I didn't embellish. I didn't speculate. I let the documents speak for themselves. 3 weeks later, I received a letter confirming what I had hoped. Serena's certification was revoked. That meant she could no longer work under the professional title she had built her reputation around. It was more than symbolic. It meant doors were closed to her legally, professionally, permanently. Still, I didn't stop there. Using what I'd learned, I collaborated with a few former colleagues and started a workshop series for young professionals in our city. We focused on ethical marketing, navigating toxic work environments, and how to advocate for yourself when you're being undermined. It took off faster than I ever imagined. When one of the local news outlets featured our program, they interviewed me on camera. The journalist asked, "What inspired you to start this?" I smiled. Sometimes the people you trust the most teach you the hardest lessons. And sometimes, the truth is the most powerful thing you can share. That quote went viral. Serena saw it. She sent one final message through a mutual contact. It read, "You ruined me." I didn't reply, because I hadn't ruined her. She had done that herself. All I did was make sure the truth was seen, the truth she tried so hard to bury under glitter, gossip, and lies. And in doing so, I reclaimed my voice. I reclaimed my story. And I made sure no one else would suffer the way I did. After everything, I found peace not in shouting, not in vengeance, but in quiet clarity. I no longer needed Serena's friendship, her validation, or even her acknowledgement. What I needed, and finally had, was freedom. Freedom from the pain of betrayal. Freedom from self-doubt that whispered it was somehow my fault. Freedom to define my life without her shadow hanging over it. In the months that followed, my workshop series grew into a local movement. We partnered with universities, held open forums, and created safe spaces where young professionals could talk about real experiences, not the sanitized versions you hear at networking events, but raw stories about ambition, sabotage, success, and dignity. I wasn't famous. I wasn't a social media star, but I was trusted. And in that trust, I found something deeper than applause. I found purpose. Serena faded quietly. No big apology. No final act. Just silence. I heard she moved to a smaller city, tried her hand at real estate. It didn't matter anymore. She was no longer part of my story. People often ask if I regret being friends with her, if I would do anything differently. And sometimes, in quiet moments, I remember the hurt, the deep, cutting sting of her betrayal on the day that was supposed to be about joy and love. But then I remember what came after. The strength I found. The truth I told. The path I built from ashes. And no, I don't regret it. Because betrayal can burn, yes. But sometimes, it clears space for something new to grow. If you've ever had a friend lie about you, turn others against you, or ruin something precious just to feel powerful, ask yourself, what is stronger, their lie or your truth? Because the moment you stop letting them speak for you, the story becomes yours again. And that, in the end, is the sweetest revenge of all.